So I find it interesting. Back 2000 was one of the first times I did my first ever interview similar to what we're doing today. And back then I had the phone, right? Remember phones, And I had a microphone from Radio Shack. You plug it in a tape recorder, you hit record and play. And that's how I used to do these recordings. So I was just thinking about that because the technology is spectacular. Next thing you know, we're going to be able to attend this sort of a thing, live, virtual, 3D, 4D, whatever, in person somehow, Star Trek-y kind of stuff. So still doing these interviews and conversations with photographers. And today we have a gentleman by the name of Raph Nogal. I'm going to tell you quickly how I met him, and I'm going to get right into it. So I'm a Sony shooter. I started with the Sony.
We don't hold it against you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cannon Head. So Mr. Neil Pert Cannon Head. So I bought the Sony system, the E7R2, and I loved it so much. I bought another one, and an E7RS, and I'm like, okay, this is a really good system. Then the E7R3 came out, and I'm like, I don't really want the E7R3. Then the E7R4 came out, and I'm like, okay, I could get that one. It's got the huge files in the double slot. So I'm going to wait a bit. And then on Kijiji, I think, or was it Facebook?
Facebook Marketplace, yeah.
All right, because I check every day. I'm always buying shit. And Raph had one. And now I would never buy a camera used. I would buy a lens used as long as there's no. But a camera, for some reason, I wouldn't. But this time I did because it was literally brand new. It was like buying a demo with 500 miles on it in the car dealer. So I drove down to Toronto back in October or whatever it was, and I paid and I bought from this gentleman here his A7R4, which he, for some reason, didn't want to use, but we'll get to that in a minute. So that's how I met him. I thought, all right, let's ask him if he wants to join us. And here he is. Yeah. How you doing, Raph?
I'm well. Thanks for having me. Very excited.
It's really cool. You're on virtually on the lake in Toronto, Lake Ontario. John's up in Ottawa Valley, and I'm down in Costa Rica. So hence the technology is mind blowing. So
yeah, we'll be holograms one day, all just in one little stage from places.
For sure.
With monkeys and coconuts and. So Raph, I'm excited you're with us today. I want to hear your story. We'll get talking some conversations. A lot of people ask us for questions. We never know where we're going to go with this, but we always start with the same basic question in a nutshell, more or less. You don't have to give us the 40-minute cinematic version, but just tell us in a nutshell what got you into photography. I'm curious to know. And then let's see where we go from there. And well, we have some sort of questions bouncing around in the back of our brains. We'll bring them up. So.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. My photography journey started on my honeymoon, actually, in Costa Rica. So I enjoyed the biodiversity, the amazing landscape that was that's there, obviously, and I had a visual arts background. I went to my school was a art-centric school. It was a high school. I was in the visual arts program in Cawthra Park. And we did visual arts every day. So I used to paint and draw, and there was a photography program where photography classes never really took an interest at the time. But being on this really cool trip, I just started playing around with my wife had a little point and shoot that had an M setting. I had no clue what that was. I put it on M, and there's all these fractions and 1/1,000. I don't even know what any of that stuff meant. And I started just playing around on the beach, getting cool sunset, cool birds coming up and silhouettes and things like that. And so it just kind of really ignited this this feeling, I guess, that I kind of had back when I did visual arts. And at that time, I was an environmental consultant. I kind of went from art to something a little bit what I thought would be my career as an environmental consultant.
Okay.
And it just kind of evolved from there, and then went from part-time to full-time eventually. And
cool.
Here we are. Yeah.
Oh, I got to ask you, what year did you get married?
2007.
Okay, cool. So that story is not uncommon. What you're talking about essentially is, in many ways, the dark room. And that's what fired it up for me in 1978. I went into the dark room. I was like, whoa. So you kind of had a similar experience with your wife's little point and shoot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have obviously an artistic temperament going to school and drawing and painting. Were you doing graphic design as well, or?
So no graphic design, no, more of that traditional, art history stuff, and then a lot of sketching, a lot of painting. Yeah, just kind of that was kind of my bubble at the time.
So you went into, you got a degree, did you, in
So
environmental?
no, it was just it was a high school that had a very art centric focus.
Yeah.
And
No,
so
after
that,
high school, did you get a degree in environmental
oh
studies?
yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I got an honors in environmental science, and then ended up working for a dewatering company in the construction industry, and then
Nice.
went into environmental consulting with a consultant. So
So you had a real job.
I did.
What
It was,
the?
it was great at the time, but it kind of, you can't get creative with a scientific report, right? I mean, you wouldn't have a job for very long if you did. So it's science I find very black and white, in art and photography is so subjective, and you're able to put your own personal little spice on it, and that's what kind of appealed to me.
Yeah.
At the time.
All right. So it's obviously, it woke something up inside of you, and you hit the ground and you ran with it. So did you quit your job then? And at what time did you quit your job?
Yeah, so I went full time in 2013,
Okay.
and it was the timing was great because we decided to add a second story to our home. We had a bungalow, and we're like, okay, we're gonna do a reno. Let's build this house. We love the area. We were like, oh, we're expecting our first child. And I'm like, well, why don't I quit my job too at the same time? And then we'll make it like this trifecta thing.
Of terror, trifecta of terror.
Yeah.
What did your wife think about all that?
Well, you know what? She was very supportive. She's in the arts too. She's an actor. She's actually opening up in Rock of Ages coming up right now in Toronto.
Oh, really?
So she's been, an artist as well and an actor this whole time. We met in university, and that's what she went to school for. So she was very supportive, and I figured, you know what, if this doesn't work out, if I can't book something, if it's 6 months in and I'm not booking any clients, I'll just find another consulting job and just kind of stick with it, and just kind of, that was kind of plan B,
You had a backup plan. So excellent. So that's exciting. Interesting. I find that very interesting. I think that a lot of people might have been very leery of that plan, preferring for safety and security and safety and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I mean, it was, it wasn't an easy decision, but things were moving pretty quickly for me. I started posting photos on Facebook of my dog and flowers and whatever, and then people are like, "Do you want to shoot my portrait? Do you want to shoot a wedding?" And people kept asking, and I kept doing, and so and the work kept coming in, and I'll tell you, the transition period was probably the most 2 miserable years of my life. It was it was 9 to 5. An hour to eat and hang out with my wife, and then 6 to midnight was photography, and weekends were photography. And that 2 year, I remember going to work as a consultant, and if I wasn't out on a job site, I was in the office doing some things, and lunchtime would come around. So instead of going to the lunchroom, I would go to the parking lot of the Walmart that was beside, and I'd go have a nap, and I have an hour nap because I was just exhausted, and it was I wasn't a fun person. I was very miserable at the time, and it was a tough 2 years, but I'm glad I kind of stuck with it.
This is really interesting. I was thinking in my brain, I got to ask him about that transition, and you just came up with it. So this is important to me because it's an important success lesson for anybody who's in photography and or struggling. So it sounds like you said you were napping. I mean, what the hell? Yeah. What were you doing to yourself, and what was it that kept you going?
Well, I guess I didn't. What kept me going was that I didn't really enjoy the job as much as I thought I would. It just wasn't fulfilling certain needs, I guess, that I had. And maybe it's just that creative itch that kept itching at me. And so, I mean, the other time was just taken up by photo shoots in the afternoon, editing, trying to get new business. So between, having a full-time job, trying to get a nap in just so I can, keep going and trying to build this thing. I didn't even know it was going to be a career. It was just photography was something that I just enjoyed, and it just kind of kept snowballing into something bigger.
Interesting. You must have, there's 2-part question here. You must have at some point had at 3 a.m. existential crises. Like, what the hell am I doing? And then at some point you go, I got to make this work. I got to start making money. I'm assuming those 2 things.
I can't think of a specific event that kind of triggered this. Okay, it's a fight or flight kind of situation, right? Survival, yeah. It just kind of kept piling up, and I kept enjoying it, and so maybe I was feeding the problem in a sense, a good problem, but I was kind of feeding it, right? But there's nothing really specific.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You enjoyed it. That's the key word. Meaning you loved it. You loved what you were doing.
I loved it. Yeah. And then it was, I think a lot of us come in as photographers trying to figure out how to make money, not as business people, just picking photography as the business to run. And so everything was new. Like you learn, you make mistakes, you try to figure it out. You go and seek help from other people that have been doing it longer than you. I mean, one thing I regret is not taking any business courses or business classes or business school or any of that. That was just kind of an afterthought. Like, I love making this art. Now, if I'm going to do this full time, how do I actually have enough for a mortgage or food or groceries, all those types of things, right?
All the essentials.
The essentials, yeah.
You had a supportive wife. I think that's really important too. So
and funny enough, when I did the switch, my family, like my mom, was very supportive, which is something that my parents always kind of steered me, like, you need to go to university, you have to give a good education. Those are good things, and they've obviously helped me with my education and things like that. So to have my mom kind of be like, hey, you know what, this is what you want to do, that was really kind of cool, and I was pretty young at the time. I was like, like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life, but this seems kind of cool. And I spent all this money and time going to university and trying to make a career out of this environmental thing. And I was moving up the corporate ladder. I was managing a team, and things were going well. I got a raise just before I quit, actually. So my boss was pretty pissed when I told him I was leaving, because I just gave you a raise like 2 weeks ago. What are you doing? But
they valued you there, so
it just wasn't a good fit, and I'm glad I found out, I guess, sooner than much later. So
I was going to ask you, usually I ask this at the very end, but I'm going to ask it now, and you kind of answered it, so we don't have to get back into it. But if you could go back, however old you were back then, what were you, 28-ish, 30?
Yeah.
Well, if you could go back right now and talk to 28-year-old Raph, what would you tell that guy?
Take some business courses.
All right.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Honestly, half the struggle was really just trying to figure out how to make this into,
John, are you cooking popcorn?
No, it's my water bottle. It's
like
we can hear every crack.
See, my microphone's great now.
Yeah.
But anyways,
it's all done.
Thank you. So, what was I going to ask before John interrupted me with his crackling water bottle?
What he would tell his old self.
No, I was
his young self.
One. I had another question, so it was a good one too. It was really, really, really.
I'll never know.
He says all his questions are the good ones.
That was just a build-up question to the main question. So, but there is this idea, though, that somebody coming on board, say somebody who's similar to your situation, a man or a woman, 28 years old, I really love photography, and they're going to go for it, and they want to hear from guys like you, because you kind of recently have just done this.
Yeah.
And they come to a guy like me, like I've been at it since 1982, still very successful at it, but it's like the younger guys are like, wow, you're like the old poop. Not necessarily. They like to hear guys like what you have to say, because you're kind of fresh out of the starting gate, and it's working out for you. And it seems to me like it's working out for you. Am I right or am I wrong? It's so far so good.
Yeah, I mean, so far so good, and there've been great years. There've been years that weren't great, in terms of income and stuff like that. But I mean, I've been at it 14 years now, and haven't given up yet, and I can still pay the mortgage and have groceries. So it's working out great, in that sense. I'm fulfilled, on a different level too, like artistically, and I enjoy what I do, which is I think so important. We sometimes we just get kind of trapped into a job or something, and I mean, I feel so privileged that I had the support, and I had sort of the the drive to kind of just to try something else, and
No regrets.
no regrets. Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Can you guys see the screen? I showed his website, John.
No, you didn't.
Okay, I'm showing it on this end. I think you have to give me permission.
Well, what screen is it?
It's
The
Raph's,
Raph Nogal one, or?
yeah, it's Raph
Oh,
Nogal.
I see it now. Okay, I see it now.
So you
I was
have
on full
to-
screen. That's why.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
does
I was
it
on
show?
full
Can
screen.
you see it?
Now you can see it. Now he will.
Let's
See, I'm
see.
switched over to your Instagram. Can you see the switch?
Yeah.
Okay, this happened a few weeks ago when we were doing a webinar like this, and it turned out none of what I was showing was showing. I was like, I did all that for nothing. I often like to show whoever we're talking to. I like to show their work in the background as we're chatting away. So I want to get back to business because I think that's such a valuable and such an important component, and probably something that you're living full time, full bore. And we'll get to that in a minute, but you've got weddings, engagements, portraits, products. You're doing gift cards too, you have families, headshots. Your core website shows initially weddings and headshots. Is that the bulk of what you're doing these days?
Yeah, you know what? I'm actually sort of in an unofficial switch, I guess. Over the last 14 years, I've been doing weddings predominantly, and now that's the bulk of my business. While I've been doing other genres just because people asked, and I've done headshots for a while. I've done products for a while. I just never really put it out there. It's something that if someone asks, I can certainly do. But now as I'm getting older, as I'm, especially over COVID too, having some time at home and spending, my son just turned 9. So he's in a really fun age. We get to do a lot of things together. And I just miss being home on the weekends and doing back-to-back weddings and every weekend. And I'm like, corporate headshots are not as exciting per se, maybe as wedding photography. But they're a lot easier, and I still enjoy them. And I'm kind of doing the switch. I'm kind of kind of seeing where it's going to take me. I think it's time to again take another risk and see what happens.
You have a studio down there, right? You're in Etobicoke?
I do, Etobicoke. Yeah. I'm definitely have a studio, so I can do headshots in studio. I can do some smaller portraiture in here as well.
Yeah. Did I say it wrong? Is it Etobicoke or Etobicoke?
You don't pronounce the K at the end. You leave that silent.
Etobicoke.
I'm so Sudbury. I'm so Sudbury, aren't I?
I'm from Southern Ontario, so I know.
Yeah. So I like this shot with the hard shadows and the white backdrop. I've always loved that look.
Thanks.
Something about it. So, Etobicoke. So, headshots. All right, where am I? I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, hold on. Give me a second.
He already took my screens that I was going to share. He's got them on his side now too, so I don't have to share them, I guess.
No. Okay. Well, yeah. I just thought we'd go over this. Now, are you doing any families? And obviously, if you're shooting weddings, you're shooting engagements. So.
Yeah, so family photos, I actually didn't want anything to do with family photos for a long time until I started having my own family. And then I can start relating to the kids a little bit more, doing Peppa Pig jokes and talking about, just the cartoons and all the things that they're into. And so, and in a lot of my wedding clients, with weddings, it's usually a one-time deal, sometimes 2 or, 3, or it depends. But for the most part, you see the client once, you have a pretty nice journey with them for over a year when maybe you're planning, you're doing engagement, you're doing albums, and then that journey ends and you never really, they don't get married again usually. So it was a really cool way to not interact, but kind of reconnect with some wedding clients that I haven't seen in 8-10 years who are now have kids and they enjoyed the process and the photography during the wedding. So now I get to reconnect with them and do that with them with their family, which is quite nice.
It's not a coincidence, when I married my wife in '95, we had a baby right away, and it's not a coincidence that my baby and child portrait business skyrocketed. And I got to the point in 2014, I said, no more babies, and I stopped.
Yeah. So babies are the one thing I'm still not, I don't have the cute props. I don't, if it's like, if the baby's a little bit older and they can, we can interact with them a little bit more. I think that's more my style. If I usually refer people to newborn photography and stuff like that. So
cool. it's interesting. You know, you have your own family, and then you're really getting it, that whole idea of family photography.
For sure.
Your weddings.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your website here. So you're not giving away your stuff, $1,200, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, all your images downloaded. You're giving them a little more. You're putting a little more work into it, and you're charging a respectable price. Are you? How valuable of a concept is that as far as marketing and running a proper business is concerned?
Well, it's huge because I never wanted to be a high volume. There's sort of I always kind of looked at this as a two. You're either here or here. You're either high volume, low price. You turn around and you just keep going, or you're going to be low volume, good quality, and on that side of the fence. So for me, 20, 30 weddings a year is great.
Yeah.
We do a lot with post sales as well in terms of albums. So our clients, do spend quite a fair bit of money with us, and they get an incredible product at the end of it as well. So that was kind of always been my thought process to be more of a boutique versus high volume.
Smart. I love it.
How many weddings a year do you usually do?
I'd say 20 to 30. Yeah.
This is good. So when you're shooting a wedding, it's pretty much a long day, like you mentioned, right?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of do it a little bit differently too, where, most photographers will have sort of hourly collections, like 8, 10, 12 hours. I actually do it a little bit differently. I start at any time of the day, and then I have a cutoff. So some of my days are 16-hour days. And I do that to myself. But what it allows me to do is to get more content. And so when I'm building the book for them later, there is a lot more that goes into that book, and that book becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and therefore translates to bigger sales, but also tells their entire story as well. So it's everybody kind of benefits.
Was there a transition point where you said, I got to start charging more?
Yeah, I mean, I have that conversation with myself almost on a daily basis, to be honest.
Good combo.
I remember there's a bridal show that I did, and it was funny. Bridal shows have been really interesting for me. Why wouldn't you want to be in a place where you have a sea of potential clients looking at your work? But when I was priced a lot lower in the $1,000 to $2,000 range when I first started, I booked a lot, and it was great. And I remember one year I doubled my pricing overnight, and I said, okay, we're just going to double it. And I ended up losing about 8 clients in a row because of pricing. And I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? And then that 9th one booked my highest package, which was like, at the time, it was like about 6,000. And I'm like, oh my God, I think I did the right thing here. Yeah. And it kind of gave me that confidence, gave me that, just that boost that I needed. And I started booking clients at a different price range. But funny enough, when I went to bridal shows, I was like the highest priced person there, and I booked almost nothing at bridal shows. Yeah, it just wasn't the right crowd for.
So you don't do bridal shows at all?
No, not at all. I don't. Right. Yeah.
I never liked doing bridal shows, but anyways, it's nice that you're recognizing that you are the highest priced, and that's a position that's a worthy position to pursue. Really, it challenges you to be your best too.
Sure, I'm sure it's backfired a few times here and there, and I'm still not I'm not the highest priced in the city by any means. Yeah. And I don't know if I want to be. I just want to work with clients who really see the value in what I do. And if it's just someone that needs generic photography just for whatever, I'm just not the right guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Right. I just want to work, and I can tell right away when I have someone on a Zoom call or someone comes into the studio and they're like, I love the way you do this or that or that. I'm like, yes, you're speaking my language.
All right.
Right. Versus someone, I need a photographer for this event.
Yeah.
Okay.
They connect with you right off the bat before they even call you. That's amazing. There's a lot of value in that. Well, yeah. So, but you're in the upper echelon as far as the pricing is concerned, and pushing yourself and putting yourself preemptively into that category, I think is a very smart thing. So you see the picture on the screen right now?
We do.
Yep.
That reminds me a little bit. I'm going to compare it to another photographer.
I'm going to say starts with an S.
Yeah, Sal Sincata.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we had him on last year. What a character that guy is, man.
Oh,
He does these. He pushes these as large wall prints to his clients, and they all buy them. This is like 50-inch canvas or metal print for sure material. I love this, and this looks like all the churches we have in our city. Not. Can you tell us on a technical side how you shot this? What camera lens, and there's obviously a background light in there. What do you?
Oh gosh, I wish I could remember what any of that was. I would imagine it would be a 24-70 or something large, and I know I corrected the perspective later in post production because all the columns were going like
tilty wilty.
Keystone.
Yeah. And I don't know if this was. So I started using Sony 2018. And I think this was either just when I started or just before. So this might have been Nikon too. I shot Nikon since I started in the beginning.
Right.
So I don't know which camera it was, to be honest. I'd have to look at the metadata.
Doesn't matter.
But
awesome job.
I mean, I like the what do you call it? Like the grandeur of it all. You know how they're smaller in this huge space, and I put in a backlight there to kind of highlight them a little bit.
Beautiful.
More, and then just some in post production, we kind of cleaned things up a little bit and made them more of the feature as well. So it was not a lot of time to do this. It was that's the thing. A lot of times people think we have hours to create something, and we literally have minutes.
You got to be quick.
Is this something that would be a mixture of two images? Because I know when people do stuff like this, to get the bride and groom lit like that, you'd have like somebody holding a light there, but then they're in the picture and you got to get rid of them. So then you take another picture without them in it to get rid of them. Is that
this was a single light just on a stand, and the assistant was out of the frame. Time. Yeah. So just the light wraps around them a little bit in this case. But it helps that she is wearing a white dress, so it kicks some light back at him as well.
That's beautiful. I love this. So when you have clients calling you or Zoom calling you and they start talking about, I love this and that and that and this about what it is they've seen your portfolio. Have you noticed a consistency in some of the style and or descriptions of some of the words that they use when they express that kind of a connection with you? And you obviously know, you mentioned it earlier, when you hear that, you know they're booking pretty much, right?
Yeah.
But can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the words I guess are vibrant. That's something that describes my work quite a bit. And funny enough, one thing that comes to me all the time is people are like, I like how your photos are not posed. They don't seem posed. They don't look posed. And I just laugh and I kind of explain to them later how my process is. And I'm like, I'd say 99% of these are posed, or I don't like using posing is a bad word. It's a dirty word. We don't want to say posing. Directed. So I definitely I'm involved in that process. I don't wait for my clients to just get into the right positions. I direct them the entire day. What makes it look not posed is sort of the moment in between the moment. It's what I say to them to get them to do something while I have them positioned or directed in a certain way. So it's funny that people say that because I know my process, and I'm like, well, I basically posed or directed all of that, but I'm glad that you don't see it that way.
I call it candid posed.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken a lot from Jerry Guiones. He was a big influence on me as I was learning this whole thing, and he always said, if you just can't wait for the client to just do whatever they're going to do, because they don't know, right? They're not in front of the camera all day long. You have to take control and direct. And so I kind of took that and went with it. Did
you take one of his workshops?
I did. Yeah. It changed my life. I'll be honest. It really, when you have that epiphany, when you do something, for me, it was seeing something that I've taken at the back of my camera for the first time. And this, like, my mind was blown that I pressed that button and I took that and it's on the back of my camera. And to see that really was life-changing for me. It really made a huge impact, and that confidence, that knowing that, okay, I can do this. I can do it because I just did it. It was huge. It was huge for sure.
Definitely. Did we lose Rob there?
Yeah, either
I
he's
think
really
we lost him there for a second. Well, one
think
comment
he's
that
wondering.
we had here from Brian Coleman. He's actually from Northern Ontario, here in Timmins area, I believe. He said, I put up there before, but it says I've had a client as a second wedding client. So I think what he's mean by that is he did a wedding, and then I guess years later that couple might have
Sure.
broke up, and then one of them again came back as another client of theirs. Have you ever had something like that happen?
Yeah, you know what? I haven't. I would be afraid to be like just saying the other person's name that's no longer with them because you're used to, like during
Yeah.
a photo shoot. That'd be terrible. So hope he didn't do that. But no, I haven't had that. I've had obviously people that have not stayed together and whatnot. But
Yeah, I've had that happen. Well, I actually had, it was funny because I had a wedding where I shot it, and one of my favorite weddings I ever shot, this is when I was shooting weddings. And then years later, this would have been probably like 4 or 5 years ago, I was helping a friend of mine who's a videographer in town, does a lot of weddings, videography wise. And he hired me sometimes to be a second videographer. So I'm not a videographer, but I'll go and do a second for him because I'm not the main guy. And as I was shooting this wedding with him, I recognized a girl in the audience there, and she was the bride from this wedding that I had done. And it was funny because when they went to do the formal portraits with the bride and bridal party and all that, and the family pictures, we went to cover sort of behind the scenes of it. And I saw her over there, and I was about to go up to her and say, "Oh, how's so and so doing? How are you guys doing in that?" And it's lucky I didn't because. After we were doing some of the photos, where I looked over and there she was with the bride's brother and cuddling all up with him and all that. I'm like, that's not the one that I shot them with. And here it turns out, I guess they had divorced a year or two behind, and she was with this guy now. So it's like you said. I mean, you're afraid to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's lucky I didn't go up to him.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to shoot someone again, photograph them. Yeah.
So when you're doing like the shots that Rob was showing there, and I can actually bring them up if I need to, but hopefully he'll come back in here soon. But when you're doing a shot like he was showing that last one there with it looked like the groom on the balcony there of the multi-leveled thing. You don't have time, I guess, on a wedding day to do a ton of shots like that. Are these just creative things that you come up saying, okay, I'm going to do these 2 or 3 creative, and then the rest are going to be just spontaneous, normal wedding party stuff? Or do you guys go in with a big plan ahead of time saying, you know what, we're going to take 2 hours with you and your bride, and we're just going to go and do all these amazing pictures?
Yeah, so I'm kind of an unofficial wedding planner, to be honest, with my clients. I definitely guide them to sort of cater to my timeline, in a sense, where I just basically put it this way: if you want these types of photos that you're seeing in my portfolio, you need to give me the time,
Yeah.
And so I usually do ask for about 2 hours of portrait time with them, and they usually do give it to me because they do want the types of images that they see for the portfolio. And then it's everything spontaneous on the day. I used to. There he is.
My internet went out.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for being patient, guys.
No worries.
No problem. Yeah, so on the wedding day, it's all spontaneity. It's we basically just go and work with the lighting and the spaces that we have, the spaces that we find. And I used to go and scout locations back earlier in my career, and I just found it to kind of put me in a box, in a sense, right? Where you go somewhere on at noon in June, and then you think that the light's going to trickle through that window really nicely and it's going to look amazing, and then you do it on a cloudy day in October, and it doesn't look anything like what it looked like months ago, and you're kind of disappointed. You still got to think on the spot. So over the years, I just learned to just deal with it and embrace the spontaneity and just work with what we have.
Okay. No, we took care of you, Rob. Don't worry. I had a feeling you had some issues with your thing. I just muted you there for a second. I'll unmute you just because there was loudness going on behind you there.
The guys came in there. A couple of Tico dudes are doing repairs. Yeah, I love shooting That's one thing I noticed over the years. And James and I used to run these workshops, and we do these crap shoots. We just go out and shoot. or we do challenges where you had 5 minutes to shoot something, one model, one prop, one series of lights, and it was pressure, and it forces you to think on the spot. And that's kind of what you're talking about, isn't it? You don't have a lot of time, and you've got to make it look so beautifully posed, which is what you're capable of doing.
Well, I think that's what the client's paying for. There's a really great quote from I think his name is Hui from Fearless Photographers, and I think the quote, I might butcher it, but he's like, any photographer can make it look. Oh wait, I'm gonna pull this quote up because I need to show it to you. It basically has to do with, anybody can make it look good, but when things are going right, it's all gonna look great. But it's when things are not going right, that's when the professional. That's what you're paying for, to make it look good when it's not going right. When you have 5 minutes. When something just isn't working out and you have to be spontaneous.
How would you say 80? Would you say 80% of the time things are not going right, and that's the challenge?
Yeah, and for some weird reason, I thrive in that. I love. I've always been, if you go back to like university days when there was an assignment due on Friday, I would do it Thursday, and I do my best work under pressure. I would never start it Monday and have the week to think it over and read.
Yeah.
So just my personality. I just work well under pressure, and I think I do my best work in
totally.
Way. Yeah.
I got a question for you. I have to show the screen though, John.
Yeah, I was gonna say, feel free to. That's why I unshared it there, so you can go back to where you were.
Can you see it?
No, I'm gonna bring it up. I see it now. I'll bring it up.
I found the quote before you. I'll tell it to you. It's the amateur makes great photos when everything is going right. The professional makes great photos when everything is going wrong. That's what I'm looking for.
I like.
Right.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I like that quote.
I thought you were a fisherman, but I'm like, oh, it's probably product photography.
It is product photography. Yeah, I caught a fishing bug last summer, and I'm a little obsessed. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I even went out yesterday because it was 9 degrees, and I'm gonna try to catch some pike.
You and James will get along really well.
James, long time. Him and I started NoBS Photo Success together, and I always call him the fish whisperer. So if you're ever up this way, let me know.
Perfect. I will.
We'll bring you out to some wilderness fishing. I'm just curious, what's with this pose?
It's them.
They're just being ironic, or what?
They're just being goofy. That's it. They're a very fun couple, and I had them, just kind of look at the camera, and then they threw in their personality in there. So that
that's your front yard right there, isn't it?
100%. Yeah, I'm just down the street through 10 houses.
Yeah. You should see this area where he lives, John. It's amazing. It's right on Lake Ontario west end. Well, you're from that area.
Yeah, I noticed some images there where you can see like the skyline. You can see the Sky Dome. I still call it the Sky Dome, of course, and the CN Tower and all that stuff. You see in the background there. Yeah.
Look at
What's
this
it now,
guy
the Rogers
go.
Center or something?
Yeah. Look at this guy go. Look at. Look, he's got a Sony. He's probably shooting RAW too.
Yeah.
Look at that.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's nice to find those little pockets of light, and that's what Jerry's workshop. I think I took that in 2012. That's what it really opened up my eyes to seeing light just everywhere, just looking at light, and analyzing it. So.
Are you the only shooter at your weddings, or do you have an assistant, one or two assistants that go around shooting with you? Or
yeah, so I have an assistant. I don't like to call them a second shooter because oftentimes people will think we're going to divide and conquer, and usually I find it a little bit unfair to the groom because usually the main photographer goes with the bride, and the poor guy, the groom, always gets like the new shooter, or the someone that's a little less experienced. So I shoot everything, and when I'm not shooting or when I'm not using off-camera lighting, then my assistant will shoot as well. So during ceremony, we'll have 2 photographer coverage, and during reception, we'll have 2 photographer coverage. So we're always in the same space in the same time. He's never off somewhere else doing something else. We're always together, but so it's helpful to me, but at the same time, when I'm not when their help isn't needed, then I will.
Yeah.
I love your eye. You have a good eye. Who would think to lay down in the flowers and get this angle?
Yeah, just something different,
Well, no. something different and really, really good. It's a cool angle. You got the sun, you got the flowers, you got the cool angle, and awesome composition, lower thirds. You got the lines leading into the subject. So excellent, excellent. So you're doing, there it is. All right, guys, here it is. Check this out. We went from this. Oh, look, we got these weird looking space flowers.
Yeah.
Let's put a couple in there.
Now
Yeah,
the
you know,
giant flowers.
Yeah, I get really weird looks from my clients too, especially when we haven't, we're just building rapport, we're building trust, right? So when I do an engagement shoot and I'm like, oh guys, there's these flowers, I get really giddy too. I giggle like a little schoolgirl, and I get very, very excited, and I start laying down on the floor and doing weird things, and people are like, what on earth is this guy doing? But I love showing them the back of the camera and saying, look, Ma, no Photoshop. And then the trust is automatic, and they're like, you know what, you can do backflips off a bus and do whatever you need to do. We trust you 100%, and I love that, and I'm able to do what I love, and the clients respond to that, which is awesome.
Well, they must, like, this has been my experience when they see you doing stuff, they're like, holy crap, this guy's good. They just their faith in you and their enthusiasm just ramps up 500-600%.
It was really funny. I had a doing an engagement shoot downtown. I was laying down on the floor doing something. I think it was a reflection of a puddle, and I was trying to reflect the couple in the water. And this gentleman comes up to me. He's like, you know what? I really like the effort you're putting into these photos. I'd really like to get your card. And I'm like, okay, whatever. He's never gonna call me. I ended up shooting his wedding later, which was awesome.
Nice.
So I'm like, yes, it pays off, to show a little bit more than standing upright with the camera on your.
What are the odds that you happen to get that lead right then and there, and he's like sees the right actions?
That was pretty funny.
So what are you gonna do? Like, I mean, look at this image, spectacular. What are you gonna do when you start getting sick of weddings? Because I think weddings are like, well, you're pretty good at everything, but you really seem to shine at weddings. So
and it's not that I'm sick of them. I just think I just need a little different stimulus, at this time. I'm still gonna say, I'm meeting a client. I'm in the next 45 minutes. Talk about a wedding. So it's not that I don't enjoy them as much. I just value other things more than I used to, like time on the weekends, with my family and spending time with my son. So it has more to do with that than actual work itself, because I do enjoy it. And I've always kind of had, since the beginning, I had this love-hate relationship with weddings anyway. Like when I think about them, I don't want to do them. I'm like, not that I want the couple to break up and call it off. That's, let's not get carried away. But I just, like, when I think about them, I'm like, ugh. And as soon as I walk through that door, I'm like a kid in a candy store. And I just love the challenge. I love, oh my God, I see a reflection. We're going to do this cool shot. We're going to do this. And I get, everything just kind of rushes in, and I love every second of it. So it's always been like that for me. When I'm in it, I'm in it. But when I start dissecting it and really thinking about it, I'd rather do something else.
I've always said that being a wedding photographer made me a better photographer, because when you're in a studio just shooting all the time, you have everything controlled. But when you're on a wedding, no matter how much you plan that wedding out, things are going wrong. You got to be able to think on your toes, change on the spot. You might have one area where you got 2 hours with the bride and groom and you can't go anywhere else. You just got to shoot in that one area and make all these different looks. To me, it made me a better photographer. It trained my eye. It trained just how to troubleshoot and things like that. That's how I always said it. I don't do weddings now, but I was glad I did them. I think it made me a better photographer.
100%. Yeah, I think, with me, I've had situations where, a couple didn't plan for a plan B and it rained and I was stuck with a white wall. And I'm like, what the hell are we going to do for 2 hours? And I had to come up with something, right? And we did, and it was awesome and it worked out. But and even something as simple as, talking to people. If you're an introvert, go do some wedding photography. You're going to be, that's going to change real quick for you, I think, and I've had an assistant who started with me at a very young age. He's at the age of 15, actually started working with me. And he was quite reserved, he wasn't very outgoing. And he worked with me for 6 years. And this guy, you could see him grow, as a human, as a, just interacting with people. And now he's running his own business, doing video. He does a lot of corporate video. He didn't want anything to do with wedding photography, but
No.
no. So he made a good choice there, but it's awesome. Yeah, it's wedding photography. You have to be a product photographer and a portrait photographer, a photojournalist, all those different genres in one with very little time. You don't get to work with models. You get to work people who are afraid of the camera, and so there's tons and tons of challenges for sure.
You got to be a movie director too, like a Steven Spielberg.
That's right.
And a psychologist sometimes too.
Oh my
wedding
God.
planner.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you said you have a love-hate, because that pretty much describes my situation. However, it's normal. I mean, and you get in there and you're excited, that all goes away, and you're in your creative mode. So that's an important point to bring up. So I like that. I like where you're going. You don't seem to use a lot of tripods. You're pretty much freestyling it. Is that true?
It's true, yeah. Until recently, so I'm just recovering from shoulder surgery. So obviously, I'm not going to shoot a wedding with a tripod. But anytime I'm doing headshots now in the studio, I never used to shoot with a tripod. But now it's just I'm getting used to the idea, just because I can't put much weight on my shoulder at the moment. I'm just still going through physio. So in studio, I'm using tripod. For products, I'm using tripod. But anything outdoors or anything like that, never. Yeah.
I love this pose. Where'd you shoot this?
This was at Mint Room Studios or Preto Loft, one of the studio spaces the couple rented for their wedding. They wanted to keep everything inside, but not just a plain white room studio. So we had some time there. Yeah, it was quite nice. They all rocked their pose. So.
I mean, totally.
Yeah.
Did you like that, or is there window light coming in?
There was actually all window light in this case. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
that reminds me of what is her name? The one that did Vanity Fair covers and stuff.
That's the inspiration.
Annie Leibovitz. Yeah, Annie Leibovitz. That's a kind of look.
And of course, I had to pose everybody, right? They didn't just randomly sit there like that. I had to do it all. you know. So.
Yeah, I love doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I love the way people tell me what you think of this when you're doing something like this. You got a big group of people. This is especially relevant when I got a 3-generation large family, and you start putting it together, and they just sort of go. And oftentimes, tell me if this happens to you, Raph. You're starting, and somebody tends to take over or becomes a little cantankerous, and then you just keep pushing, and then all of a sudden it shifts, and they go, "All right, this guy knows what's going on. I'm just going to back off a little bit." Have you ever noticed that? Have you had that experience?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it usually comes from a place of good intention. They want to help. They know the family. They know. Usually in pictures we stand like this, and this person always stands there, and we always have our kid in between us. And so they're just going to what they know, and they're trying to be helpful. But yeah, sometimes and I get that a lot at wedding. The funniest thing for me is that weddings, when we get to, let's say, the bride's house, and it's an overcast day, so it's a little bit dark, but we have beautiful window light coming in. And it's sort of a certain color temperature, right? But mom's like, "Oh, it's dark. Let's turn all the lights," and everything's orange.
Oh, yeah.
We're starting to mix all the the Calvins together, and it looks like a nightmare. And mom's just trying to help, right? But she doesn't know much about lighting and color temperature. So I'm always like, it's okay. We got it. And you take a few pictures to show the back of the camera. And she's like, "Yeah, I won't touch any lights. You're good."
Yeah.
So
you're still doing lots of weddings. Have you noticed a tendency towards smaller weddings, sort of like the pop-up weddings? Have you noticed anything?
Yeah, I mean, I get a fair mix still. I still get big Italian weddings, or with 200-300 people in a a hall and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, over COVID, there's been obviously that's been reduced. There's certain times where we literally had the bride and groom, and that's it. So things have kind of shifted. And I'll be honest, as a young couple, again, depend on which demographic, and depend on what your family wealth is or whatnot, or what you value, I suppose. I think as a young person trying to get a mortgage in Toronto, or the down payment on a house is near impossible, let alone buying a car and things like that. So I think it's all relative. There's a shift, I think, but I guess it depends what market you're into, right?
Yeah, cool. I was just curious if you've noticed that, because we're getting away from big weddings just by choice. I'm turning
Yeah,
65 next summer. I'm like, I like these pop-up weddings, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
we're really enjoying it. So my wife's a wedding officiant now, so uh,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. So we're down to 9 minutes. John, do you have any closing questions for Raph?
Well, I'd like to maybe see if we can delve into his workshop site there. Maybe talk about that a little bit because he's got the Afraid of the Light workshops.
Well,
So
let's go there.
yeah, like there's his thing there. So why don't we try that? You got it right there. Maybe he can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been doing a lot over the years. So I partnered up with Profoto, which I was really lucky to be able to connect with them in 2017, I believe. And they didn't have a rep in Canada, and Sweden reached out to me. They liked some of my work, and I've been working with Profoto since then, doing a lot of workshops and events. And that led to doing things at at Profusion with retailers like Vistec. I've done things with Henry's and doing Shutterfest again with Sal Sincata. So I'll be going over there. And so over the years, a lot of people have come in just being afraid of light. There's been this whole thing of I'm a natural light photographer. Well, that just means you don't know how to use light. And I heard this somewhere, and I don't remember who said this, but they're like, oh, I'm an available light shooter. I'm an available light photographer. And I always say, like, yeah, my flash is available. I have it.
That's true.
It's with
Smart
me.
ass. I love it.
Right?
I love it.
And so I really like that idea of basically, just empowering people to just get over that fear. And think there's a lot of people who, maybe have tried studio lighting and, they're okay with setting up a softbox and a background, and that's it, and working with it. And as soon as you take it outside, people are like, what do I do? It's like a whole different ball game. And so I've developed this workshop. Oh my gosh, when did it's been a few years now. And I invite a small group of people to my studio, and it's sort of a two-part day where we spend some time looking at more of the technical things, going through examples. And then the second part of the day is I want to get lights in their hands, and I want them to start using the lights with my guidance as we go through some exercises that I put together. So it's a quite intuitive, hands-on workshop that I put together. And yeah, we've taken it to Quebec City, and we've done it here as well multiple times over the years, and had some really good feedback on it. And it's nice to see the people that have taken it take what they've learned and put it into practice too later, which is pretty.
Are you renting a venue? Is it at a certain spot in Toronto?
So I've done it through my studio, just my studio here.
Okay.
My studio has changed. We've done some renos, so it looks different. So I think for anything upcoming, I will be renting a studio space to host, that dozen students that would come in.
12, limited to 12.
Yeah, about so. I think that gives me enough time to kind of cater to everybody. If we make it bigger, I feel like some of the stuff gets lost, and I'm not able to help everybody out.
12 is a good number. So this is amazing. So anybody can go sign up. I encourage you to do so right here. And I'm going to put the link also in to all these sites in the replay video on YouTube. So
yeah, we don't have any dates yet for this year because a lot of things are up in the air. I know Profoto is doing some stuff that I'm doing stuff with them, and Sony wants to do something as well. So I'm a little bit everywhere, and haven't had any dates yet to pick, but those will get announced once I get something pinned down.
That's pretty cool. Last few questions. Quirky, fun, light. What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie? Oh my gosh. I can't.
You're on a deserted island.
I say 300 visually.
All right.
I like that dark, moody, and that's part of my work. I think that's always something that's always, I don't know, I guess studying Caravaggio and Rembrandt and the use of light and shadow, that's always resonated with me. And I love doing those dramatic one light, hard shadows, hard light type of images. So yeah, cool. I'd say 300.
Nice. That's a good one. So,
with another Butler in it there, Mr. Gerard Butler.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
it encourages me to go to the gym because everybody has six packs in that movie.
I don't go
Sorry, I
to the
just had
gym.
to throw that in.
I'm just naturally buff.
There you go.
Joking. So, last question, maybe another one.
Drink.
What's your favorite meal? Food? Yum.
Ooh, everything. I eat everything. Honestly, I love Thai food. Some of my favorite is Thai food. Yeah.
So you're like me. You're on a seafood diet. You see food, you eat it.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? Yeah, exactly. And I can't have seafood at home. My wife is intolerant to seafood. She gets sick, so not allergic, but so I can't have seafood at home. My son has a peanut allergy, so I can't have Thai often because it usually has two of those things.
Peanut oil.
Yeah. So when I can, I eat Thai food.
The struggle is real. So,
Yeah.
well, Raph, it's been a pleasure
Thank
having
you.
met you and buying a camera off you and
Definitely.
then furthering this with our webinar. I'd love to have you back in another year or so if you're up for it. And,
Awesome. Yeah.
you're up our way or John's way and you want to do some northern wilderness fishing, let us know. And
Yeah. No doubt. I will.
yeah, I really appreciate it. So that's it, John? We're done.
Yep. That's it. And I guess I'll have to look them up when I go visit my family out in the Brampton, Toronto area there.
There you go. Yeah. Stop
Yeah, we'll
by,
have to
say
get
hi.
together for sure.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. Really nice chatting with you. I like how it was just kind of, off the cuff.
We like to keep it cash and just have a
love it.
discussion. And hopefully we can get you back on again in the future and check in on you and see how things are going.
I find the best information comes from these discussions, and so many of your points were like on point. And anybody who's watching this and sort of struggling and or starting out, man, I'm telling you what Raph was saying, those were some very I'm not going to say hard learned, hard earned, because they may have just been part of your journey, but they're very, very essential, important points. And take it to heart.
Definitely.
This is real. This is amazing. So I appreciate you being here, and we'll bid you farewell. Safe travels.
Pleasure to be here, guys. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right.
And I guess I should be ready for my little button here.
Here we go. We're out of here. Bye.